In this lesson, we'll be cutting scene 1 of our film. For some of you, this may be the first scene you've ever cut, and for others, it may be one of many. In either case, it's important for us to be thinking about a few things as we begin the editing process. First, we always need to be aware of where we are in the story. As this is scene 1, we're at the very beginning, and nothing's happened yet. As such, we don't need to worry about any previous story points or context to keep in mind. Which brings us to our second consideration. Who or what is this scene about? This scene is meant to establish the normality in the story, our starting point. In it, we'll be meeting our protagonist, Alex. We'll be getting a feel for his personality and the world in which he lives. Beyond those basics, we need to be thinking about what the scene should accomplish. Primarily, this scene should introduce Alex as a troubled individual who receives some disconcerting news in the form of a letter, which will ultimately be our inciting incident or the catalyst for all the events to come. As you'll see, we're going to have to carefully choose our takes and performances to make sure that the viewer is along for the ride and invested in, or at least interested somewhat in our protagonist. Otherwise, they won't care about everything that comes after. Of course, we're going to be using our script to guide us while cutting together the narrative, and we'll be leaning on our line breakdown to help choose the best takes that establish clear scene geography and paint our characters in the right light along the way. Alright, so now I'm going to turn you over to Brian, one of our senior editors and trainers, so that he can walk you through the steps of cutting together this first scene. Here we go.
Before we get into editing this actual scene, I want to take a look at the script with you first and show you my thought process for breaking down what's going to be happening in the cut. So the first thing that I notice here is that there is an opening montage that I have to sort of work on at the beginning. Now I'm probably going to save that for later on in my edit because I want to focus on getting the scene down on the timeline first and then go backwards to do some of the more complex stuff. This scene also features the introduction to Alex. We can see that his name is capitalized here at the beginning, so it's the first time that we're going to be seeing him on camera. And it is our audience's first time seeing him on camera. So introducing him as a character is very important here. Now, when we first find him, he's ogling a woman who's going to be searching through the store. And I know that we have some footage of that. So we have to find a way to build that out so that we get the sense that he's watching her. And that Sailor, who's the cashier, is watching him watch her, and that this really upsets her. So we know that there's something between the two of them right off the bat, and we want to try to establish that, just in the way that we cut the scene together. Now, I'm looking at some of the beats of the dialogue in the scene. As the process server enters the room, he says Alex, and Alex says, "Don't ring that," and then Sailor steps in and says, "Can we help you?" I'm reading this as Alex is being very standoffish, and Sailor is coming across as his protector, so that's something I'm going to want to try to look for in the takes of the actors' performances. Then when the process server repeats Alex Fletcher, and Alex notes that he's a process server, Sailor asks, "Why do you know that?" And I read here that Sailor changed her tune a little bit. At the beginning, she was very protective of Alex, but now I'm reading that she's learning something new about Alex for the first time, and maybe she's a little bit concerned about who Alex actually is. Why is a process server coming after him? So this is another moment I want to try to extend a little bit and make sure that we're hitting those beats in a clear way. Now, at the top of this page here, we get into some banter. There's a little bit of sort of humorous back and forth between the process server and Alex. And it lets me know that the scene can have a little bit of a lightness to it. It doesn't have to be too hot and heavy right at the beginning. And then finally, all the way to the process server asking, "Will you give this to him?" I'm starting to see that Alex is trying to avoid something, and Sailor comes to a realization here. Now, this is just this particular scene. We're going to do this for all of the scenes eventually, and sometimes you might be doing this subconsciously as you read through the script before you do any actual editing. Now, this works for virtually any movie. Let's say you're doing a comedy and you want to find all of the best comedic beats. You might think about where you want to really focus on the editing points as you look through the script and mark it up, so that when you're doing your edit, you know really where to focus your timing efforts to make sure that those moments really come across. Alternatively, let's say you were doing something like a horror film, and you knew that the characters were giving out some important information about the killer or the ghost, and so you'd want to make sure that you were using the right close-up or the right scary angle of the character giving us the speech. And so there's always ways to break down the scenes that you're working on and think about what's actually going to be happening, even before you start cutting. That way, when you get into your actual edit, you're more prepared to be working with the footage and have a mindset going into it of what you want to accomplish. So let's hop right into editing the scene. Now I have here my line breakdown that we already made together, and I'm going to open up my sequences bin, for scene 1. And in there I have my sync sequence, my selects, which is my line breakdown, and I have a blank temp edit sequence. I'm going to go ahead and open up that temp edit sequence. This is where we're going to drop all of our quick and rough edits so we can just work with the footage. So I'm going to dive right in here. I'm going to look right at the very beginning here. So this is Alex, and he's going to ogle the girl standing in the store. Now, I think that I'm going to actually skip this section. I'm going to move right into the dialogue. I want to focus on getting the scene to happen and move backwards from there. Sometimes it helps to begin somewhere in the middle of the scene where you kind of understand what's happening before you have to go and figure out how to make other parts of the scene actually function. Having a good waypoint for that, whether it's in the middle and you work backwards or it's at the middle and you work forwards, is always helpful to anchor your thought process. Now, there's one thing that we did a little bit earlier on here, which is that we made a marker for a shot that we thought was going to be especially good. And that's this right here. I think that I'm going to start with this shot. I already know that I like it from watching through my line breakdown. And so I'm going to begin with this one right here. I'm going to cut that in first. And I'm just going to make some space because it should be a little bit further down the timeline. And this is his line.
Process server.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
Tell them I'm not here.
I know you are. You're right there.
So there's some good stuff happening here, and I'm going to leave this here to anchor us. Now I'm going to work on this section first, and then work backwards from there and forwards from there. So we definitely need a piece of coverage of Alex to fill in some of these moments. And I think just for my really rough edit, I'm going to do a ping pong of back and forth. So I'm just going to do Alex's line, the process server's line, Sailor's line, Alex's line, and I'm not going to be too precious about having nice clean L cuts and J cuts to really make the scene flow. I just want to get something on the timeline first. So in this moment, let's find some of Alex's coverage, and that's going to be right here in my source.
He's a process server.
And we'll look through some of the different takes and see if there's one that really speaks to us.
He's a process server. He's a process server. He's a process server.
Let's go with take 2 here. Now, of course, as you do your rough edit, you're going to have to do some quick manipulations, like we probably left in some of Alex's line back here.
He's a process server.
So I'll just trim that out.
He's a process server.
How do you know that?
And then we're getting some of Sailor's line at the back here.
He's a process server.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
So one of the things that we mentioned is making sure that we get Sailor's "how did you know that" line to really work for us. And I'm not sure it's working perfectly here, but I know I want to use the end of this shot where the process server talks to Alex. Let's find a better take of Sailor's line. Sometimes if you're looking for a best take, I always like to start at the back of the takes and then work forwards from there. So starting with take 9 and working take 8, take 7, take 6, etc., etc. Usually when the filmmakers are shooting their scene, by the time they get to the end, they've sort of found the direction that they wanted to head in. And so you're more likely to find a better performance towards the end of the takes than at the beginning.
Process server.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
And I think 9's looking really good. Let's check out number 8.
Process server.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
I like her in number 8 as well, so it's kind of a back and forth. We might revise this later and find something stronger, but let's go with 9 for now.
How do you know? How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
Now we don't have a lot of coverage of this scene, so we can't cut to a close-up of Sailor or a close-up of the process server. We kind of have to let their lines play out in this master wide shot.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
Now I'm going to trim that out of this shot here.
Tell them I'm not here.
And we do have a line from Alex, so we can cut back to Alex here to make sure we get back to this part of the line from the process server. So we'll hop back into Alex's coverage.
He's a process server.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
Tell him I'm not here.
So I like that performance. It's pretty good.
Just tell him I'm not here. Tell him I'm not here. Just tell him I'm not here.
So there's a lot of natural acting performances here from Alex, and I think that the best one really was number 4.
Tell him I'm not here.
So we'll cut that in.
Tell him I'm not here.
And we'll keep a little bit of that laugh. So essentially what we've done here is we started with one shot of this entire section from our line breakdown, and then dug a little bit deeper into each individual line to bring in the different performances from different takes. Let's watch how this constructs now.
He's a process server.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
Tell him I'm not here.
I know you are. You're right there.
Now we can either choose to work forwards or backwards. Now I feel like the momentum has us moving forwards here as the process server approaches Alex, as opposed to working backwards, which we can do a little bit later on in our edit. So let's look at what happens next in the next part of our line breakdown. I'm going to go to the last take to see that.
Do not come past the counter, that's trespassing.
Look, it's not a summons. Someone just wanted to make sure this made it.
So we have a shot of the process server trying to cross over the counter, and then we have Alex trying to stop him.
Don't come past the counter, that's trespassing.
Now, one observation that I would make here is that as the process server tries to approach the counter, it feels like he sort of starts and stops multiple times. Check this out.
Do not come past the counter.
And then Alex stops him. But the great thing about the way that they filmed this scene is that between this shot here and this shot here, we don't see either of their shoulders or their movements in either shot. And so we can actually choose how to time this shot out. Now, for the sake of getting a really rough cut of the scene down on the timeline, I'm going to let it play as is. But I'm going to make a note that I want to modify this later on, because I think that this part of the scene can be heavily improved with a little bit of cutting. So if I go back to my main timeline and extend the end of this last shot here, we're going to see the process server now approach the countertop.
Don't.
And Alex will stop him. Now we'll only hear the voice of Alex stopping him, which we can use from another take. But I think to make this a little bit better, I'm going to trim off Alex stopping him. I'm going to use that from an actual shot on Alex.
Don't come past the counter, that's trespassing.
So this is good. Alex gives a very clear and direct eye line to the process server. So I'm going to cut this shot in. And we're going to line it up just so Alex turns right away.
There.
Don't come past the counter, that's trespassing.
And we'll want to bring in some coverage from this shot here. So I'm going to go ahead and toss this up in my source window here and find a little bit more of this shot.
Don't
Like as he sort of bounces back,
come past the counter, that's trespassing.
puts his hands up. This is like a nice little moment, kind of funny as well. And we can just drag this in on top of Alex's coverage. Sometimes when you're doing a quick little overlapping insert type of shot, it's better to keep it on your second track of video, so you sort of know that you're letting something run continuously, but cutting to a little insert or cutaway shot. It also makes it easier to slide it around very quickly, like this, without having to change trim points of the other shots around it.
Don't come past the counter, that's trespassing.
And we got kind of lucky there as his sort of O noise lined up to his actual mouth movement. So that was a pretty lucky grab for us. Now the goal here isn't to get this perfect. It's just to get something down on the timeline so that we can go back and look at the way the scene comes together very, very quickly.
Look, it's not a summons.
So Alex's reaction here is very nice, but we do have to cut back to him here. So let me just load my line breakdown in here again and find that line of dialogue.
Look, it's not a summons. Someone just wanted to make sure this made it.
So we'll keep this whole section of this shot here and drop that in this moment. Now I'm going to do an insert edit here. Essentially, it will put a cut and push everything out of the way as I drop this clip into my timeline. Most software has this, and it's a good way to do quick little inserts of things that you want to include, just like this.
Don't come past the counter, that's trespassing.
Look, it's not a summons. Someone just wanted to make sure this made it.
Now we can see we're going to be including some of what he just said in this shot.
Look, it's not a summons. Someone wants to make sure this gets to you.
So we'll just trim this part off of this shot here. And the nice thing about doing an insert edit is that the insert of what I just dropped in was much longer than what I removed from this shot here. So if I had done like an overwrite edit, it would have covered the entire shot. But I wanted to keep 1E take 4 going because I like his performance. I like the flow of his performance here. So him kind of ignoring the process server works with his sort of exasperated turnaround. And this is great, because even if I just leave it like this, when we come back later, we can see that there's lots of room to modify and make this scene even stronger. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put this scene together very quickly in the same manner, following the script and keeping in mind the principles and tips we learned from just cutting the middle of the scene together. I'm going to go forwards all the way to the end, then backwards all the way to the beginning. The idea here is to just get something down on the timeline, because we're going to watch it back in just a second. Now that we have a cut of our whole scene, let's watch it through and see where we're at.
Alex?
Don't ring that.
Can I help you?
Alex Fletcher?
He's a process server.
How do you know that?
I'm only asking as a formality.
Tell him I'm not here.
I know you are. You're right there.
Don't come past the counter. That's trespassing.
Look, it's not a summons. Someone just wanted to make sure this made it. Would you give this to him for me?
I wouldn't take that.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
Fuck.
Told you.
Now it's me that has to give you this. It's not a summon. Who is Holt? You okay?
Yeah. Wrong Fletcher.
You can't leave. Mike said.
Cover for me.
Yeah, right.
So understandably, we have some stuff to do. As we watched back through the scene, I noticed that we left in a shot that was duplicated. We had a lot of very long, unpleasant pauses that were unnecessary. Some of the comic timing wasn't really working, and there were just some general areas to really button things up and make them better. One of the reasons why I really like this method of constructing a scene at the outset is that I immediately can see what's wrong with it, and I already have work to do to get to fixing it. So there's no mystery as to what I should be doing next. I already know where to begin. So let's just first off fix this issue that I had by repeating two of the same line.
Would you give this to him for me?
I wouldn't take that.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
So we obviously missed having a shot in here as I was building it. I'm going to go ahead and cut this delivery of that line. And we're going to have to add in some sort of reaction shot because we can't cut from this to this. So we're going to grab a reaction shot of Alex to drop in on top here. Something where he sort of acknowledges that he was intentionally messing with this guy. You know, maybe a little smirk or something to kind of give us a little bit of his character. Now that we actually see how the scene plays out, we can actually focus on building characteristics of these characters into the actual structure of the edit. So that look right there. It almost appears as if he's giving a bit of side eye, saying, I wonder if that guy's left. I kind of like what he just did there.
Fuck.
And we're going to skip all the audio stuff. So we're just going to cut in that video to our second video track.
Wouldn't take that.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
That has to go right here.
I wouldn't take that.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
And this is also where we can begin doing some of the minor audio adjustments as well, sort of finessing the way the audio plays out underneath shots. Like right here, we were cutting off some sound effects, and this might even need a bit of a crossfade transition, maybe 6 frames.
Be delighted.
Thank you.
Stuff like this, where you've cut into a reaction shot, is also a good opportunity to compress some of the time of the scene. We don't really need to see this guy walk all the way out, open and close the door, and then walk into the parking lot. We can actually cut back to this shot as the door is in the middle of closing.
For me.
I wouldn't take that.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
So structurally, things are working a little bit better. The timing is a little bit faster paced, and the scene generally makes a little bit more sense, but we still have to come back to this at some point in the future and focus on getting these character moments just right. Are we using the exact right moment of Alex's look here to establish what's going on in his head as a character? And do we need more information about what Sailor is doing? By cutting out his walk to the door, we may be cutting out important information about what she's up to. Let's move forward from here.
Told you.
So his told you is supposed to be a bit of a punchline. She says,
Fuck.
Told you.
and there's quite a long delay. I think she should say that line, and then we should get right to him overlapping her.
Fuck.
Told you.
And you could even have more of an overlap by doing a bit of an L cut or a J cut. Let's try more of her and less of him,
Fuck.
Told you.
and maybe the opposite direction. More of him, less of her.
Fuck.
Told you.
I think the other way was better, and you could even perhaps just go a little bit tighter here. Get this audio to line up. Add a crossfade between these two tracks.
Fuck.
Told you.
And now it's much stronger. Let's see that played out from right back here.
I wouldn't take that.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
Fuck.
Told you.
Now, she's reading a note, and she knows the contents of that note, and he has no idea that his sort of sarcastic attitude is definitely the wrong tone for what that note actually says, which we will find out later in the film. So maybe as an editor, I want to make sure that you, the audience, knows that Alex is being kind of a jerk here, and he doesn't realize it yet. So him saying "told you" can be cut away pretty quickly to her reaction shot,
Fuck.
Told you.
and she should react a little bit sooner.
Fuck.
Told you.
And then maybe get some of that paper crumpling noise in here as well. And we'll put a crossfade between the audio.
Fuck.
Told you.
So I like that because now the focus is a little bit on how Alex is being kind of a jerk, but he's about to have a bit of a wake-up call as he finds out what the contents of that letter actually are. Now, in a situation like this, where you're trying to figure out how to get the character to really shine through in the moment, sometimes it helps to make two different cuts of the same moment and play them together to see which one works better. Now, you could just take all of this footage here, copy it, and then go to the back of your timeline and paste it and make another copy of everything so that you have two copies of what you're working on with two different sort of spins on them. Like in this second copy here, I'm going to find a different delivery of Alex saying this line and make him come off as less of a jerk. Let's see if that can play better in our scene and if that works as a better way of establishing Alex's character in this first moment with him. So I'm going to head back to my selects here and I'm going to find a different told you.
Told you.
Told you.
So this one seems a little bit lighter. Less like he's going to cut her off. Let's put these all back together here.
Fuck.
Told you.
Now we need to actually see her turn her head.
Fuck.
Told you.
And maybe giving him more time.
Fuck.
Told you.
Makes him a little bit more sympathetic here. So there's two really different avenues to play this scene. There's this version where he's a little more sympathetic.
Fuck.
Told you.
And then there's this version that we're currently working on.
Fuck.
Told you.
Which makes him a bit more of a jerk, but also makes the gut punch of what's about to come to him a little bit stronger. So two totally different ways of playing the scene. Now, one piece of advice for you, if you're going to go ahead and do this, don't keep a copy of the entire scene at the back of your timeline, because you're going to be inevitably making changes to the rest of the scene anyway. So just keep a copy of the part of the scene that you modified. So basically from right here, we're going to get rid of all of this and everything after it. And so this is just a little alternate cut that I can use if I want to try something different a little bit later on. And I might keep a bunch of these at the back of my timeline of alternate things I was trying out as I was working on the scene. Now, something else that I noticed in playing back the scene here is that we get into the scene, it feels a little bit too early. It feels like the scene should really begin right here as he walks in, and all of this stuff at the beginning doesn't really do a good job of establishing who Alex is. It's unclear what his motivations are in this camera angle, and in general, this paints Alex as a less likable character than we'd like to see him as in the very first scene of the film. So this brings up a good point that I want to mention, the concept of entering late and leaving early. This is an old writing tip that means that your scene is really just a slice in the middle of several events, and typically not the entire thing. When you enter a scene late and leave a scene early, you get right to the meat of the scene and avoid unnecessary padding. So I'm going to go ahead and just make the decision to remove that right away, starting the scene right here. I also feel that cutting from this guy asking for Alex to this shot here is a better introduction to the character in his first real moment on camera than the other example was. Sometimes it's good to try to decide where to get into a scene and where to get out of a scene. For example, at the end here,
Fletcher.
You can't leave. Mike said.
Cover for me.
Yeah, right.
Alex walks all the way out and does the same long parking lot walk that the process server does. We don't need all of that. We could probably get out of the scene much sooner. In fact, you could even wonder if we could leave the scene
Wrong Fletcher.
right here before this shot even occurs. If I were to just remove these two shots here and extend the end of this one so that Alex leaves frame, that feels like a natural end. We kind of know that Alex is leaving the store now.
Yeah. Wrong Fletcher.
Because you can imagine that the next shot might be a shot of a bustling street or Alex sitting on a bus or in a car, so we would know right away that he got his bag, picked up his backpack, walked out the front door, walked to his car, turned on the ignition, drove out of the parking lot, drove somewhere. We would know all of that instinctively by just seeing the next shot of the movie. It's also nice to end in this moment because we have another instance that we just removed of Alex walking out and essentially skirting on his job responsibilities and being a bit of a jerk to Sailor here as he exits. So anytime we have an opportunity to try to reframe the character in a way that makes sense for the story, so it's important to really pay attention to what you've allowed to add into a scene and what you've chosen to exclude from a scene. Now the idea is that I'm going to go through this entire scene now and look at every individual edit point that I made and decide, is this the right edit point? Am I making a good choice by making a cut right here? Am I using the correct take? In playing it back, does this take jive with the previous take and the next take? And I'm going to go through the entire scene now and do that.
Don't ring that.
Can I help?
Little things like that are really important to get just right, and we could spend a lot of time finessing it, adding more time to the previous shot before he moves his hand away, before he speaks. How much time do we want to let him linger his hand on top of the bell before Alex says something? Are we using even the right take of him putting his hand on the bell? Do we need to have him put his hand there faster, or does it need to be slower? Does Alex have to respond quicker? Do we need a snarkier take of Alex? Lots of questions run through our minds as we go through and try to revise the scene. The best way to work when you have one of these sort of fat edits to work from is to think, if I was the director of this movie, what changes would I ask for from my editor? Essentially, at this point in the process, you are the one who's making those decisions before anybody else sees what you've put together. So really spend some time deciding what you think should go where, and really building and finessing the scene to be the best that you think it can be. Now I'm going to do this section right here to show you an example of how I might consider working on really finessing something before moving on to the next segment of the scene. So let's watch this through.
Don't ring that.
Can I help you?
So right away, I need Alex to say, don't ring that, and it needs to be faster, snappier, and louder. I can hear him kind of inhale before he speaks, and it makes the whole thing very deflating. Let's find a better take of don't ring that.
Don't ring that. Don't ring that. Don't ring that. Don't ring that. Don't ring that. Don't ring that.
So I think this first one is actually a little bit better.
Don't ring that.
Great, because he's a little bit faster and a little bit snappier. Let me go ahead and just cut that in. Now I'm going to do something different than I was doing before. Because I'm going to do some experimentation, I'm going to push everything out of the way, make some room, and give myself room to work in the timeline. I'm going to cut that in. I'm going to play with the balance between this shot here and this shot right here. So the idea is that he puts his hand over that bell, and then Alex cuts him off. So I want to get Alex to speak right here. Let's see how that plays.
Don't ring that.
Okay, that was much better. Now we need to have more of Alex. Obviously, that's far too short.
Don't ring that.
Can I help you?
But then, of course, Sailor jumps in too soon. So we're going to cut out the audio and let it hang on Alex for a second.
Help you?
Alex Fletcher.
Just going to clear out some of the audio here, and we'll fill it with something else from another shot. And we'll get rid of this little tail of the shot that we don't need either. Now, the next shot that comes in
Can I help you?
is her walking up saying, "Can I help you?" So we're going to do this. We're going to bring this over here and drag out some audio.
Don't ring that.
So we have a don't ring that we have to worry about clearing out. Let's go ahead and do that. But we have all this extra silence here that we can just drag a copy of.
Don't ring that.
Can I help you?
And maybe that's a little bit too long.
Don't ring that.
Can I help you?
And that's a little bit better. Maybe a little bit less on Alex. Like we kind of see Sailor moving towards him here, which is good.
Don't ring that.
Can I help you?
And right away, that's feeling much better. So the don't ring that from right here, we don't need. But we still have to figure out what's going to happen before this moment. So let's go ahead and bring all of this together here and see how this plays now.
Don't ring that.
Can I help you?
Alex Fletcher?
And it's much clearer. So we've essentially extended some of the shot, cleaned up some of the audio, found a new take to cut in, and put things back together to make a much stronger moment. Now we could sit here and we could revise this even more, but now that we're in a flow of getting things working, I tend to move forward from here and do another pass later on. The idea is to make pass after pass after pass of the scene until you're having a hard time finding things to change. Once you feel really comfortable with the way the scene is flowing and coming together, chances are you have a version of the scene that you say, hey, this kind of makes sense. This is really working for me. And that's where you want to get it to before you start moving forward on anything else. Because the idea is that when you come back with fresh eyes in the future and look at it after a little bit of distance and working on other parts of the film, you immediately go, oh, hey, I've actually got some notes on my own work here. I think I can make this even better in the future. One of the things that we're all really good at is giving notes and giving feedback. And so I always try to treat my initial edits as things I can give notes or give feedback on, because then I have some actionable items to actually work towards. As this is also the first scene of the movie, it's also really important to establish Alex as a somewhat likable guy. And I think that we're doing that by making some of these small changes. One of the things that I would do as I continue to move forward in adjusting this scene is keep an eye on all the moments where Alex speaks to make sure that we're finding all of just the right takes that paint him in a likable, positive way. Even though he is a flawed character, we don't want our audiences to hate him right out of the gate. So it's important to strike that balance between finding a likable main character and a character who is also fundamentally flawed and has problems to overcome.
Hey guys, Chris here. So this lesson has some homework. Go ahead and cut scene 1 of the film and use your line breakdown that you created in the previous lesson. Coming up in the next lesson, we're going to be cutting a new scene, the argument that occurs between Alex and Claire at the hotel. All right, I'll see you in a bit.